How will we be remembered? It's a question that sometimes people agonize over. I think there's this idea that, how will people remember us? We like to be thought of well. We spend a lot of time making decisions in our current everyday life because we want people to think well of us. Perhaps we want to have a good, lasting memory. I remember had an active thought that ran through my head as a child. I aspired one day, at one point I think I was still in my single digits. I might have been 8 or 9 years old. During my first presidential election that I remember, I was like, I'd like to do that. I thought of myself to become president. And so from that point on, I decided I made this vaunted efforts, I wanted everyone who I left a conversation with to at least have a good impression of their interaction with me, so that if they ever saw my name on a ballot, they're like, it's like, oh, I remember that guy. I kind of liked him. And would, at the very least, have a lasting memory. I don't know if you ever read obituaries. Sometimes I'm always amazed about what people find important to put in them, to be remembered by. And a lot of times it's not the person themselves, it's loved ones who remember them, and I find it interesting, especially if, as a priest, I have a particular memory of particular individuals, and then it's like, sometimes I read those obituaries, it's like, did we know the same person? It's an interesting thing. I bring all that up to consider one of the saints who remember today, Saint Sebastian. We know literally nothing about him. But the one thing that we do know is that he was martyred. He's often depicted with, a lot of times the martyrs, when they're depicted visually, it's usually shown in the way that they were, something of how they were martyred. So he's usually shown with arrows through him. So that's how he was killed during the persecutions of Diocletian. But that is all we remember of him, is that he laid his life down in defense of Christ and the gospel. If 2,000 years from now, if that is all that is known of you and I, looking back ahead of at that prospect, will that be enough for us? What will actually satisfy that memory? And that might impact the decisions we make today. It won't matter what we looked like, the clothes we wore, the jobs we had, but it will impact the decisions we make in the everyday of how we spent our time in relationship with God and in relationship with other people. Because to get to that point when you're actually willing to lay your life down, to give it for love of Christ and church, we have to really be at a point of character, to be like at that moment, to find a place of peace to accept it. Not look for it, but when it happens, and to say, my life is not my own. In baptism, I have freely given my life. There is nothing this world can take from me that I have not already freely given to Christ. So if you think, what decisions impacted that Sebastian do in his everyday that got him ready to be such an individual that's the only lasting memory, 2,000 years, over 2,000 years from his death, that's what is remembered, is that he was a martyr. As we reflect on that today, just think of that again. Let that sit with us. That's the only thing that the world will remember us. in that same amount of time in the future? What decisions will we have to do today to prepare ourselves for that possibility? Martyrdom is not something that we seek out, that we look for, that hopefully maybe we don't even aspire to, right? But we always have to be ready to give always be prepared to defend the hope that is in you, right? A lot of times it may mean, the everyday white martyrdom where we don't shed blood, but it may be in the public square, it may be in our reputation, it may be in just the everyday. It might impact that aspect of our lives. But if there's ever a point in our lives, and we have brothers in this other world who are facing this right now, facing the prospect of giving their lives in defense of Christ and the gospel. It's not that far removed from our today's time. What decisions do we need to decide to make today so that we're ready to accept that possibility, to live with a heart of a martyr? So if that day ever comes or not, we still have a heart for Christ and the gospel. And to let the fruit of that heart spill into our everyday lives and our relationships, our relationship with God, relationship with others, relationship with our community, and to invite others to come to that same spot, to that same relationship. Think of how many souls have been impacted by the witness of St. Sebastian, who are moved by his witness and devotion to Christ and the gospel, and have committed themselves to that same path themselves because of his witness. Pray that we can live such a way where those decisions we make on an everyday can perhaps impact another as well in the same way. Saint Sebastian, pray for us.